remarkable story of Jan Aarden begins on the 6th of November 1893, when in the town of Oosterhout, a baby boy was born to Martinus and Lucia Aarden. This young boy was named Jan. Throughout his childhood, young Jan had a fascination with all animals. His early school years were spent at the St. Paulus Abbey in Oosterhout, and it was here that he met Father Paulus, a teacher at the school, and someone who had a great interest in racing pigeons. Jan became passionate about these wonderful creatures, volunteering to look after Father Paulus's birds, always learning and wanting to know everything he could. This started a burning desire that possibly made Jan Aarden the greatest long-distance racer ever in Holland, and the strain of birds that bears his name legendary around the world. It was clear that the desire was there, but now Jan needed a loft of his own. His parents were not pigeon fanciers and they didn't have much spare money available. Seeing how serious their son was, they agreed to a small loft at home. It wasn't the grandest, but to young Jan it was a palace, and he was king.
He now had a loft of his own to go with his desire. The only thing missing was the pigeons. At this point it is important to tell the story of how Jan obtained his first birds. As we said before, Jan was educated at the St. Paulus Abbey in Oosterhout. One of his teachers was Father Paulus, who had a unique method to incentivize children's learning. He rewarded them with cards, a green card for every time they worked hard, and a red card which was obtained by trading in 6 green cards. Now Jan was by all accounts a good student and quickly was earning green and red cards. The objective for the children was to get 6 red cards. For these, Father Paulus traded a book for the child to read on their own. Jan Aarden had other goals on his mind. For the required 6 red cards, it was not a book that he desired, but some racing pigeons of his own, and so an agreement was made. Jan Aarden obtained his very first racing pigeons by hard work at school. When Jan was 18, he joined the Snelvliegers Pigeon Club in Oosterhout. It was here that he replaced his original birds obtained from Father Paulus with proper racing pigeons. Like all stories of success, it also involves a bit of good fortune. Around this time, Jan met Gerard Oemans in Breda. Gerard was one of 6 brothers, Jan, Harry and Toon, Koos and Jeff being the others. They were slightly ahead of Jan in developing their family of birds, a family that would make the Oeman brothers the champions of long and extreme long-distance racing in the Netherlands before World War II.
Mr. Oemans Sr. took a particular liking to Jan and treated him like a 7th son, teaching him all the tricks of pigeon racing, all the while Jan was learning and embracing all that he was told and saw. Oemans' birds made their way from Breda to Oosterhout. In quick time, because of the quality of birds and his own hard work and drive, Jan Aarden became unbeatable in his club over the short and middle long-distance races. In the bigger organizations he also started to achieve great success, even beating the Oemans brothers with their own birds. In the spring of 1924, Jan Aarden moved to the Grintweg. The sport of racing pigeons was no longer of great importance because his 4th child would soon be born. The youngest son of Jan Aarden, his parents named Anton Aarden. Like his father, Anton was also very interested in racing pigeons, and when Anton was 18, they became a combination father and son. Now Jan Aarden was back racing seriously, with the help of his own son in whom he could see a lot of his young self. The emphasis moved from short and middle long-distance racing that he had been famous for in Oosterhout. Their emphasis now switched to extreme long-distance races, as Anton was very interested in this discipline. Anton was very friendly with Willy van Kampenhout, who had birds that were famous from the extreme long-distance race points. It was after conversations with Willy that Anton became passionate about competing in the international races from San Sebastian. However, he did have to persuade his father that this was the racing they should become involved in. In the end, Jan Aarden agreed with his son, and therefore Jan Aarden became also an extreme long-distance racer. Jan Aarden did stipulate one thing: if they were going to compete, they needed good long-distance birds. Birds that they currently didn't have in their own lofts. And so began the search for the origin birds of the Jan Aarden extreme distance birds.
Jan Aarden knew that an uncle of his was a very well-known extreme long-distance flyer. His name was Henri Rage, from Den Haag. He was champion of the Den Grootste Bond. The top stock bird in the Rage Loft at that time was Aarden Vassert. It was a beautiful red pigeon that Henri had acquired from the auction of well-known racers Pauwels from south of Ghent. The origins of this bird was from Belgian champion Vassert of Fleurus, a well-known racer of the Karl Wedge strain of birds. Henri crossed his Oud Vassert with a couple of hens from Dr. Bricot. At that time no better birds up to 500 kilometers could be found anywhere. From Jan Schouten, the champion from Rotterdam and specialist on the extreme long-distance flights, Henri got his best racing pigeons for the extreme long-distance flights. He bought from Schouten the Limoges Duiven, an older sister of the famous Blauw Duif, one of the best racing pigeons before World War II. When he was 9 years old, he won with Schouten the 14th National St. Vincent and the 18th National Dax. Schouten was a rich man, buying the best of the best from Jules Roeckaert, who raced for a very long time under the name Oostro. In 1934, Jan Aarden got 4 pigeons from his uncle. With these 4 pigeons there was a 6-year-old light checkered cock. He wasn't big and he had a very small physique. Jan Aarden would later import one more of that kind to his racing pigeon loft. This cock became one of the best breeders of the father and son Aarden. They called him the Raedoffer. Also his nestmate, the Oud Reeduiven, came to Steenbergen. She also became a good breeder of many top pigeons for father and son Aarden.
The pigeons of Roeckaert had impressed the Grandmaster Aarden so much that he went 1 year later to Borgerhout. Jules Roeckaert bought some racing pigeons at the beginning of the century from the Grandmaster Edouard de Herd, from Kontich. From 2 direct de Herd pigeons Jules bred his famous Mushka, a fantastic racing hen and an even better breeder. She became the mother of the Oudlicht. He was paired to a hen of Emile van der Voort, who had almost nothing else other than Roeckaert or Oostro pigeons. From this couple Jules Roeckaert bred his stock bird the Godelicht. This cock, again not big at all, was a truly all-round flyer and won first prizes from short distance until extreme long distance. Sons of this stock bird, the Godelicht, became stock birds at that time with several well-known racing pigeon fanciers in the Netherlands and Belgium. In Belgium with Vincent Marion, Merksem van der Espt, Oostende, and in the Netherlands with Han Wassen, Rotterdam, Henry Ray, Den Haag, Fernand Schull, Roosendaal, and last but not least Jan Aarden, Steenbergen. The Godelicht from Jules Roeckaert was paired to several hens. With the Donkier Kluitmans, he paired the stock birds of Van Ray and Van der Espt. With her daughter, Blauw Kluitmans, he paired the stock bird of Fernand Schull, Roosendaal. The racing pigeons of Kluitmans were from origin of Isidore Claes, also a racing pigeon fancier from Antwerp. The best youngsters came when the Godelicht was paired with the Gode Blauw from his townmate Floor Lennertz. This Gode Blauw hen was unbeatable on the short distance and became a stock bird of Roeckaert.
From this couple, Jan Aarden bought a magnificent cock, the Blauw Oostro. This cock seemed to have tremendous breeding capacities. He became a top stock bird with Jan Aarden. Jan also bought from Jules Roeckaert a light checkered hen Belsk. The Belsk hen was bred out of the Leon, a red cock from Leon van der Sandy when bred together with Oostro hen. The father of the Leon was the Goede Licht and the mother of the Leon was bred closely to the Goede Blauw from Floor Lennertz. The mother of Belsk was the Blauw Kluitmans. A sister of Belsk, the Gode Duivenik, was bought later on by de Schiemecker brothers. Gode Duivenik became one of their top stock birds. After World War II, Jan Aarden received on loan via Wagemaker a cock from the de Schiemecker brothers which was bred closely to the Gode Duivenik. Jan Aarden also bought an older heavily inbred hen. She was called Duvelge. She flew with Oostro as a young bird in the strong Antwerp Union organization, winning 30 early prizes. Roeckaert bred her from one of his best breeding hens, the Fee, a red hen from townmate Theo van Hove. The Fee was a product of partnership breeding and came out of the Goliath from Oostro, a son of the base pair Goede Licht with the Goede Blauw, and a daughter from the Oud Licht, the stock bird of the Roeckaert loft since 1919. The father of the Duvelge was the Goede Licht himself.
Before World War II, Jules Roeckaert had a very strong extreme long-distance race strain and he was in favor of inbreeding. He was a normal man, a man who never searched for publicity. By his fine art of breeding, he was able to build a strain of birds at the Eid Koevenstraat in Roeckaert, from where many famous racing pigeon fanciers have taken the fruits. His name wasn't that famous in the years 1920 to 1930, but his pigeons could compete with the best of Belgium. Jan Aarden had noticed this. The third visit of Aarden wasn't so far out of his neighborhood. A trip with the family was linked to a visit of the specialist on the extreme long-distance races in Zeeland, Leo de Kock from Hulst. Jan Aarden had noticed there a beautiful 2-year-old dark checkered hen. This hen was to become one of the stock birds from the father-son combination Aarden. She was named the Roeckaert. The Roeckaert hen was from the origin Staaf du Sarduin and Markwini from Saars out of Gent. Father and son Aarden bought that same year a hen from the Belgian extreme long-distance racer Bremdox. The duo Aarden wasn't successful with this new blood of Bremdox. Also, the blood of Tinus for me wasn't a success. Not everything that the Aarden family tried worked, but they persevered and built the strain we recognize today. The base of the breeding loft of Jan Aarden was made at the end of the 1930s by the blood of Ostro, the blood of Henry Ray, the superbreeding hen of de Kock, the Kampdorfer, from Willem van Kampenhout, and in 1938 there was also the 2 pigeons of Hermansen from Anthony Wagemaker and Thijs stock. Jan Aarden formed with this mixture a very hard flying loft. His breeding capacities were based on his natural talent, his large experience and his grand know-how of the genealogy. He was in favor of inbreeding. His 2 basic couples had some same blood strains.
First, Jan Aarden coupled Blå Ostro with the Oud Reduoven. This combination was a great success. The most famous son of this couple was the Fietsvlieger. He won from Nguyen, 7 minutes in front of the rest of the convoy. After World War II, the Fietsvlieger came back to the Loft Aarden and bred some magnificent birds. His nestmate Dick Blå was a very good racing pigeon and was superior in the breeding loft. A year later he bred the Skowan Blå out of this couple. This racing pigeons always won first prizes on the club Olympiads. The Dick Blå died in World War II, but the 3 musketeers became very important to the rest of the Aarden story after World War II. The 3 musketeers, out of Blå Ostro and Oud Reduoven. 1 Dick Blå NL 36 to 37251. 2 Fietsvlieger NL 36 to 37252. 3 Skowan Blå NL 37 to 2128. The second base pair was composed of the Radoffer and the Belsk from Ostro. The 46 was the best son out of this couple. In the young bird competition in Steenbergen, he won the young bird competition with the 1st, 9th, 14th and 45th prize. A full sister of the 46 was the Orleansk. The Orleansk won top prize positions from Orleans for 3 consecutive years. The Fietsvlieger was paired to the Roeckaert of de Kock. With this pairing, the third base pair was formed, and they also bred some very good racing pigeons. The most famous hen out of this couple was Die Verkeerd Duoven, one of the best racing pigeons ever from the Aarden loft. The Dick Blå was paired by Aarden to Duvelj from Ostro. The 4th base breeding pair was formed. Out of this 4th pair was born Moik.
The breeding concept of Jan Aarden was very clear. The baseline of his colony was formed on the sons, daughters, grandsons and granddaughters of the Godelicht from Jules Roeckaert. In the years 1938 and 1939 nobody could fly to compete with the breeding products of Aarden. In 1939 Jan Aarden was already racing his pigeons on the widowhood method. All still was not perfect though in the mind of Jan Aarden, and when he and Anton had a visit from Willem van Kampenhout, they discussed that they still believed that Bordeaux was too far for their birds. Kampenhout was extremely impressed with the quality of the Aarden birds and suggested they give St. Vincent a go. Jan and Anton basketed just 4 birds for St. Vincent. They were Verkeerd Duoven, Skoon Blå, Dikke Blå, and Moeik. The birds were liberated on the Saturday. On Tuesday, the race would close. Race conditions were poor with heavy rain along the race route and hopes were not as high as they normally would have been. At 3:00 in the afternoon the winner of First National Netherlands was known. Jan Aarden's first Pigeons was his second nominated, Verkeerd Juwewin. She came around 6 o'clock in the evening, winning 59th National Netherlands. Jan Aarden was now convinced about the quality of his racing pigeons because the Verkeerd Juwewin, despite the constant rain for the entire flight, wasn't tired and showed no signs of stress at all. The Dikke Blauw won the 95th National Prize. Unfortunately, the Aarden family made a basic mistake. They thought that the race was closed on Monday as usual for the traditional Friday liberation. Schoon Blauw and Muik arrived before the official close time and would have still won good national prizes. From doubt over the ability of their birds, they had just clocked 4 out of 4 and all would have been in the national prizes. The rest is now history and the story of one of the greatest long-distance family of racing pigeons that the world has ever seen.
Like all the great strain builders, Jan Aarden over the years successfully blended together several breeds of pigeon including the Delbars to create his own strain, and from the 1930s onwards the legacy began. In later years both Jan Aarden and others including Van Agtmel, Van der Wegen and Van Giel to name but a few, who had obtained his birds, dominated from races such as Dax, St. Vincent and Barcelona. This put the small Dutch village of Steenbergen firmly on the map as the heart of distance racing. Fanciers from all over the world came to obtain birds of the Jan Aarden origin, resulting in the success of many of the modern-day long-distance fanciers. The major influence, however, in the development of the Aarden strain and the consequent dynasty was Zilvervosje. This light Czech hen with a reflection of silver in her wings was a wonderful breeder as well as a racer. Her bloodlines are there in the families of the great Aarden fanciers like Muller, Van Agtmel, Van den Berg, Van der Wegen, Van den Einden and the Kuipers, as well as being the grandmother of Conipius's second national Barcelona. In fact, her contribution to the development of the marathon pigeon in Europe is immense. Zilvervosje is a daughter of Slaper, H46 to 270518, which was of Schutteren bloodlines. Other research confirmed that another Schoutern pigeon was the other parent. This fabulous hen, when mated with Zesentactig, H47433486, also known as 86, bred late Meesters, H495255758, a pearl of a pigeon. The famous 131 was a great-granddaughter of late Meesters, the latter appearing in the pedigrees of many of the best modern representatives of the strain. The late partnership of Ijerkamp Muller confirms that Zilvervosje was the foundation bird of their family. The sire of Van Wanrooy's the Spin is a grandson and the Dam is a granddaughter of Zilvervosje. And of course the Spin was the foundation bird in the families of Kuipers brothers and Peter van den Einden. Aarden's famous 37 was a grandson of the hen. In turn 37 was the grandfather of Giel van Agtmel's 500 as well as the grandfather of Jan de Weert's 131. Surely two of the best of the Aarden dynasty.
Zilvervosje was the granddaughter of the Oude Wit Pen, a famous breeder of Toon Stoffelen and Bontje Aarden. Dam of Lichtenberg's 10, was a granddaughter of Zilvervosje. Bear in mind also that the Bontje Aarden was the mother of Janus van der Wegen's Oude Doffertje. The list appears to be endless regarding the breeding influence of Zilvervosje, but, as stated, she was also a very good racer. Some of her triumphs included the following: 3rd National Dax, 1949, 2nd National Dax, 1950, 55th National St. Vincent, 1950, 7th National Dax, 1951, 47th National St. Vincent, 1951. Although a reserved person, Aarden made some friendships which added to the building of his strain. One of those friendships was Piet de Weerd, the world-famous pigeonologist, whose knowledge and advice Jan pondered. Another fruit of their friendship was the so-called Piet de Weerd pigeon, perhaps Aarden's main breeding hen of Delbar and Diegaffroy origin. In fact, the Delbars played a prominent part in the Aarden's origins, for some of the early breeders carried the blood of this strain. The success of the developing Aarden strain caught the attention of Jant's fellow fanciers in Steenbergen, and many were purchased, resulting in the area becoming the hotbed of long-distance racing in Holland. This also contributed to the evolution of the strain. A few of the latter around the period after the Second World War until 1960 included Toon and Piet Lichtenberg, whose famous Henoud Wit pen, when coupled with another Aarden, were the parents of two of the most famous representatives of the strain, the famous number 10 of Lichtenberg and the fabulous Oud Doffertje of van der Weggen, the latter being the foundation of the van der Weggen strain, while number 10 became the father of the famous Dol of Marijan van Giel, the origin of the Van Giels.
The late Marin van Giel from Nieuw-Wassemeer in Holland succeeded in breeding a family of birds with exceptional perseverance and exceptional character, whose base stock birds were obtained from Giel van Agtmel, the best friend of Jan Aarden in the mid-1950s. Two of the best long-distance racers and breeders ever flown in Holland were the Lang entered 18 times for national races above 625 miles, winning 17 prizes, and the Dal 67 ended his distinguished career in 1975, 8 years old, with a third national St. Vincent and 4 weeks later third national Dax. The original Van Giels have been the building blocks for many long-distance lofts around the world. Champions such as Vlech, Zoan Dal 800, Dr. Dal 290, Favorite, Dal Kief, as WEL as many others, are household names now, and fanciers such as the Kuiper brothers, Wim van Leeuwen, Jomp Clean etc. owe their success in part to the late great Marin van Giel and the Jan Aarden-based birds. As the strain developed, it dominated the races from Dax, St. Vincent, Bergerac and Barcelona, among others, taking Europe by storm and extending beyond to become a truly worldwide family. Piet de Weerd helped in this context by buying good representatives of the strain and selling them to others. Another important contributor to the success of the Aarden dynasty was Piet Lazarums from Zeg. This Aarden specialist bought out top lofts of Aardens, and through this he owned the best of the strain. In turn, Lazarums was used as the main source of the Aardens by the best fanciers in Europe and elsewhere. For example, Van Pepperstraten and De Heyde. The latter built his loft on his famous clapper, which he had got from Lazarums. There's also the exploits of Van Zelderen, who won 5 nationals with Aardens. Recent examples are Theo Ernest, whose Barcelona successes are based upon the Aardens, and also the Brugman brothers, whose famous loft is founded upon another Aarden source, Hein and Hub Oostenrijk. Nor should the exploits of Jack Steketee of Brunis be overlooked, for he formed one of the top Aarden studs of the 1990s. His Golden Breeder 788 is considered one of the best of the Aarden dynasty, as is the highly thought of 60 of another Aarden ace, Cees de Jong. Then there are the world-known breeders and racers of Jan Polder and Piet de Vogel of today.
Such is the influence that Jan Aarden has had upon the sport of pigeon racing, that his name is used widely or associated with Dutch long-distance racing pigeons. For many, he was the creator of the Dutch long-distance racing pigeon. In his early days in the sport, Jan Aarden could not have imagined what his love of racing pigeons would lead to. For arising from the strain which he produced, there now exists a dynasty, the Aarden dynasty of long-distance and marathon thoroughbred racing pigeons. Therefore, what better memorial to Jan Aarden but to ensure that the strain which he molded and which became a dynasty will continue to overcome distances, mountains, seas, and other obstacles on the way to nest or perch. Thus, all today's Aardenists will continue the work of the master from Steenbergen.